afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching this rebroadcast or listening to our podcast. This is Fly Nubian Money. Welcome, 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 where we help you master your mindset and maximize your money, or shmoney, as Constance would say. More people are staying in relationships, not because they want to, but because they can't afford to leave. Rent, childcare, healthcare, basic living costs are forcing hard decisions. Today, we're asking a straightforward question. If people are staying together to save money, is that practical, harmful, or just the reality of where we are right now? This conversation looks at how finances shape relationships and what it means when money becomes the deciding factor. Today, I am joined by Shalaye, real estate broker, CEO of Vital Source Realty, as well as Aisha, finance and insurance expert. Aisha Verzi, I know her last name by heart. Financial and insurance expert, as well as Nomalenga, educator and M3 advocate, marriage, motherhood, money making. I am Dr. LaNee Javette, Brilliance to Bank strategist and business coach. And introduce yourself in the chat. Let me know who's in the chat, where you guys are tuning in from. And then we'll all answer this question. Would you stay with someone for money? Shalaye went like this, so she gets it first. Would you stay with someone for money?
That's that's a loaded question to give a yes or no. I would say that it really depends on the situation, but I would say survival wise, if you really needed it, yes, it happens a lot, happens every day. So yes.
Says they can't afford to be single. My man, you can't afford to be single. What about you, Aisha? Would you stay with someone because you couldn't afford to be single?
No.
No?
No.
What would you do?
Go back home to my parents' house.
Okay. What about you, Nomalenga? Would you stay with someone if you couldn't afford to be single?
Absolutely. And hopefully as the show goes, I'll be able to explain why.
Okay. All right. I don't know if I would stay. I think I'm in alignment with Aisha. I would not stay with someone because I can't afford to be single. I would probably go home as well, or find someplace else to go. Staying with someone because you can't afford it, it leads to just drama, trauma, frustration, arguments, disrespect, all the things. But I believe we have a video. So we're going to go to our first video, and then we're going to come back and keep digging into this conversation.
Childcare and healthcare means couples are trapped. Too broke to break up. More Americans than ever are deciding to stay in relationships, not because of love, because they cannot afford to be single. Raising cost of living, shared rent, student loans, childcare and healthcare means couples are trapped by budget, not by heart. Breakups just aren't emotional, they're financial. In costs, splitting leases, splitting bank accounts. It's easier to stay together than to restart alone. This generation isn't committing, they're coping. They're too broke to break up.
All right, Nomalenga, since you said you would stay, we'll start with you. Why would you stay?
So it has to do with why you get married in the first place. And financial stability, wealth building, generational success are absolutely some of the biggest factors in getting married in the first place. And then everything else goes up and down. Sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you feel like you love them, and you don't, Assuming it aren't the horrible things like beating and cheating. Everything else comes and goes, and the stability and the wealth building and what you're really doing and building your family and leaving something inheritance for your children, that really matters. So you don't just get to say, I'm leaving, and there's actual stability and wealth building in place, because that's what family is about. It's one of the anchors of family.
So you're coming at this from a marriage perspective then?
That's right.
Of course.
That's different. Very different.
Yeah, I don't think that, and I could be wrong. I think if you're married, I think it completely changes the whole conversation. But go ahead, Shalaye, you did the What do you
But
think?
know, LaNee, that most relationships don't count unless they're actual marriage. I just don't think it counts.
That's a completely different conversation, but we can come back to that in a second. Because let me come back to that. Shalaye, why did you
Because I think that there's an argument to be made that marriage changes the conversation and that relationships don't count if it's married, but I don't think that that's reality. I think that people have plenty of relationships that aren't marriages. And I think that it depends on what your circumstances are in life at the time, whether or not you make that decision at the time. I know that I've known people who have made that decision at a certain period of time, but during another phase of life, they wouldn't do it. But maybe they don't have young kids anymore. Maybe circumstances are different where they can say, you know what, yeah, it's a little expensive, but I'm doing this on my own. But if you have young kids, how many kids you have and everything, and you need that to survive, I think that that could definitely affect your decision.
Okay, Aisha, you were about to jump in a minute ago. What were you about to say?
Yeah, I think again, like when Nomalinga was speaking, she was speaking more of the ideal situation when you were married. That's a different story. But I think the more overarching focus is people that are single, all these various ways of doing things. That doesn't really count. But we have to face it, right? But if I'm in a situation that are not a marriage situation where it's a boyfriend and girlfriend living together, now they can stay apart because they're worried about money. I'm leaving. Why would I even stay with somebody in the first place that don't know my husband, right? So if I was in that situation as a young girl or young woman that is single and in that situation, I would not stay. But if I'm married, it's a different story. We'll work it out because marriage has ups and downs, and you walk through it. That's why you have the village behind you, helping you, guiding you, giving you advice. And sometimes you may have to go to your parents' house for a short time if things were not going well, just to resolve issue so that you don't get abused or disrespected. Your dignity has to erode because somebody is treating you like, because you don't have money or because of issues like that. That was where I wanted to jump in.
Okay. And so I think it's a little so I think that when you are married, you're going to try harder, or at least you should, right? So if it is a matter of staying together to be together to try to figure it out, or just staying together, and the only reason, like nothing in this relationship is working, and the only reason is because it's cheaper, that's not enough. But if it's let's work at this, let's see what's going on, then yes. I mean, when you're married, like for better or worse, for sick and poor, you're supposed to be trying to figure it out. Boyfriend and girlfriend, we just, living together or whatever the case might be. Hell no, I'm not staying just because it's less the affordability of being single, right? Because now you're compromising. Where you gonna date at? Where you gonna bring your dates to? Where they bringing their dates to? It just becomes, that's when I'm like, it begins to be complicated, I think, when you look at it that way. But then the next part of that is, how expensive is it to be single these days? In the chat, let us know if you're single in the chat. How expensive is it? Here in Arizona, I would guesstimate a 1-bedroom apartment is probably going for about, I don't know, maybe $1,200. Is that expensive? Is $1,200 expensive for a 1-bedroom apartment? I guess depending on what part of town you live in, because I mean that it could be $1,500. If you have a car, what's that? 500. So that's about 2,000, like 1,800, maybe 1,750 on home and car, utilities and things of that nature. It's probably about $2,500 a month, $2,500, $3,000 to be single. Do you guys think that's expensive? Would you stay to split 300,000, or would you walk out to pay your own 3,000? Shalaye, we'll start with you.
It depends on the situation. It depends on what you do for work and how much you make at your job, and if you can do that 3,000 on your own, or if you have to split it. Like I said, it really depends on the scenario. If you're in a situation where you live in an expensive city and you cannot afford to make it on your own without being commingled with someone else, then you have some choices, right, to make. you can make that decision to stay in a situation that may not be, and we're not talking, it doesn't have to be that the situation is abusive or anything. Maybe it's just like, maybe it's just like, this isn't the love of my life, but this is convenient at the time. You have that decision to make. Or do you move to another city where it's maybe more affordable for you to live? So $1,200 for a 1-bedroom is cheap. Okay.
Right.
So you need to be doing it on your own. You get an apartment for $1,200, you need to stay there forever.
Forever. She said forever, ever. Does staying together for money create resentment, Nomalinga? Do you think that if somebody would, so if everything else is gone, there's no relation, there's no love, there's no relationship, there's no, both people aren't in it anymore. We're looking at each other sideways. We're literally just here because this is the most economical thing to do. Do you think that would create resentment?
Are we still talking marriage, relationships? Because
I think in that capacity, it doesn't matter.
To me, it matters. Like I said, I don't see why I would stay with a boyfriend, and especially if I'm resenting him. It just doesn't make any sense to me if there's no future, if we're not building anything and we're just passing time. That makes no sense to me. If you put it in the context of marriage, like I said, it is what it is. There's ups and downs, and sometimes you're gonna like them and sometimes you won't. Sometimes the love is strong and sometimes it's barely hanging on. But you got to stick to your commitment. You're committed to building the family. You're committed to building the wealth. You're committing to, creating stability for your children, and even for yourself.
What we're talking about is you don't have any of that. So there's no commitment. There's none of that stuff. All that is gone. Zip, zip, zero, nada. None of that is there.
And it's just the money.
It's just the money. That's it. That's all that there is. It's just the money.
Yeah. I'm gonna say with like there's this saying that diplomacy is saying to a dog, "Nice doggy," until you can find a rock. So it's a matter of just sticking around until you can get an exit. So no, I don't think it's a good idea to stay. You do have to find your way out of that situation.
Okay. But to answer the question, if that were the case and you did stay, resentment would probably find its way in.
Of course, yes, yeah. Resentment would definitely start creeping in, and you wouldn't want to stay in that situation. And I also do want to say though, I just don't like the idea of creating crisis in your life. So you do have to exit mindfully, thoughtfully, and amicably, hopefully.
I mean, that's the best, especially like you said, marriage kind of creates a different, I don't know if marriage creates a different, I don't know.
It does, LaNee. You do know it's different.
And they feel like, in California anyways, if you've been together for 10 years, it's like community marriage or whatever that is. So you have people who are in relationship, who are mentally married, but not married on paper. Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell, that's one of my favorite little white couples. They've been together for 35 years or something stupid like that, and they've never married. You have what's her name? Oprah and Stedman. They've been together over 20 plus years. So you have people who are in relationships, committed relationships, many years relationships, who are not married, who are committed. And so that's what I'm saying. Yes, but no, because it just depends on a person's beliefs around marriage and commitment and relationship. I think we have another video. Do you want to let's go to video and then we'll come back and keep it going.
Bro, I've been sitting in this car for about 2 hours now because I refuse to go inside and be with my wife. Like, I hate her that much. The only reason why I'm with her is because I'm broke and I don't have nowhere else to go. Like, I can't afford the rent on my own, and she makes more money than me. So, I mean, if I was to get a good job tomorrow, I'd be gone just like that. With a woman I really want. But I can't afford the woman I want, so I gotta settle for her. Literally. If we're being honest, I think I'm doing her a favor. Because she got low self-esteem anyway, and she bad built, so she should be lucky that I'm with her, if that makes sense. So I don't feel guilty about it, but I mean, some gotta give, because I can't keep doing this. Like, I could be with somebody I really want, but I refuse to do more, I'm kind of comfortable with being nothing.
He's trolling.
I listen, no Malenga. I was like, is he for real? Because that's what you got to think. You gotta think
He's trolling.
because she got to follow his page.
Mhm.
So I don't even know. I hope he's joking. I hope that this is not real. I seen that on social media, but I didn't even click it. I saw what it said, and I was like, I scrolled right past it. I was like, I don't got time for this shit today. I was like, keep it moving.
So the producer's like, there are people who actually feel this way, and she doubled
Now,
down
that
and
is
said
true.
it again. People
That
feel
part is
this
true.
way. There are men who feel this way.
There are men who feel this way. So let's talk about the men who really do feel this way, because whether he was trolling or not, there are really men that feel that way. So, Shalaye, do you think people are honest about their feelings with their partners?
Oh,
Relative to this, are people honest with their partners about this?
about like
with you. I'm
about the reason why they're there.
Yeah, I'm literally just here so we can split the rent. You built bad, and I don't like.
I just can't with all that, but
it was not necessary.
I'm like, he went to the left. I think that it would be wonderful if people were honest about it. Like, hey, we have this situation. Maybe it started off great. I mean, relationships fizzle for one reason or another, or you find that you get into a relationship, you find you're not compatible with the person. I don't know, and it fizzles, right? And if it's a situation where, look, this is logistical, and let's just be honest about it. I believe that people should be honest about that. I mean, definitely don't lead the person on and make them think that you're in love with them. There's going to be a lot of issues behind that. But I think that if people are honest about the situation, then it'd probably be more workable. And there needs to be a plan. If that's really the case, there needs to be a plan to shift at some point and to pivot, because that's not a sustainable situation.
It's not a sustainable relationship model. Aisha, I would assume and think that it affects emotional health, trust, intimacy. I've known a couple of people, actually, as we're having this conversation, who have stayed for whatever reason. They own the house. They're not together. He sleeps on one end. She sleeps on the other end. They got separate, but they got kids. So they decided to stay in the house. They're not together. He does his thing. She does his thing. But they want to live together for the kids. I know another couple who he refused to leave and she refused to leave. So they ended up just splitting the bills, right? Like, we just gonna live here and split it because I'm not selling it to you and you not da-da-da. And then I know another couple who they were married and they lived separate lives because neither one of them could afford the divorce. So they just stayed married for like 7 years, but lived completely different lives until one of them, I forget which one, got into a relationship, and their partner, like once they got their money together, they were able to afford the divorce. So how do you think this affects emotional health, Aisha?
I think that would make anybody that is sane go crazy, because then it's like you're neither here or there. You're just doing just to do. I think sometimes that, to me, really begins to erode our own self-respect and our dignity. I think it depends on the situation. If it's a marriage situation, there's children involved, right? Because you're trying to keep stability for the children, because they don't deserve that chaos. They don't deserve it. They didn't. So you do your best to stay, to help make them grow in a more stable and see mom and dad working together to make things better. Not necessarily maybe they're no longer in love, but sometimes I ask myself, why do people think that marriage is only for them to be in love, that you have to be in love and all this butterfly in your stomach all the time? It's also about sacrifice. You sacrifice, die to yourself, meaning you say, you know what? I came into this with the belief that it's forever. So if anything goes wrong in between, I will do my every best to stay, especially if kids are part of the situation, until they are in a place where they can make their own, they can think more logically and understand the situation. Then we can, maybe part our ways. But it's harmful if we just do it just casually. It is very harmful to the next generation, and it continues. It's like we're planting the seed of this way of living that doesn't really help us be better. So I think that our goal the first way is to do things the right way the first time, if we can. That's supposed to be the right thing. To all these problems people are having, all this living together, young people think, as why are you living with somebody that's not your wife? I came to America many years ago as a young person, and not with my family. It never once crossed my mind to go and live with some man that's not my husband because I want to split a bill. Never crossed my mind. You're not my husband. Why am I living with you? It makes no sense to me. But it's happening today. I get it. But I think that it only erodes our self-esteem over time and our self-respect. Even though we don't see it, it does. Because everything we do hinges on that. And then we're worried why this thing doesn't work, that doesn't work. We're all over the place. It's because the foundation we've already set for ourselves is not correct, and we just ripped it. That's what happens when we don't try to go back to the right way of doing things. So it's harmful. We should try to do it well as much as we can the first time, and then if anything goes wrong, with the village on our side, work towards fixing the problem.
So I agree. Period. That's the end of the sentence. The world we live in does not necessarily do it that way all the time. And unfortunately, a lot of times before marriage, people will literally say, hey, you're paying $15,000 to $22,000 for your place. I'm paying $15,000 for my place. Let's move in so we can split the bills. And so sometimes going into living together is literally to save money and cut the bills. And then you get to see all these crazy things about this person in relationship. And then you're like, I don't want to be with you. This is crazy. But now we stuck because we done cut these bills and my quality of life has changed. And I can't afford to live on my own. Noma Lega, the question says, should people plan financially before leaving a relationship? But I don't think that's the right question. What kind of conversations should be had before going into a relationship about finances?
So I believe in marriage negotiations. Some people think they're outdated, but we still practice it. And I'm talking about with parents, uncles, grannies, everybody in there, negotiating what's going to happen. Ideally, it'd be a young couple, but sometimes it's not. And sometimes the great thing about it is that those people have a wealth of experience. That they're all pulling it together and giving you the best advice and asking the right questions. I don't believe that any two people can actually, especially if they're living together and having sex, or they're in a relationship and they're in that phase where it's all lovey-dovey, they can't even think straight. They're not making the right decisions. They're not asking the right questions. So that's why you need that village to ask the questions that you're not asking each other. And kind of sometimes I've seen once in a while where a couple doesn't follow through and get married because they couldn't answer the questions, and it started making them think like, I'm not sure. And then sometimes the answers that the other person comes up with, then it's like, oh, wait a minute. I've known couples even where it's usually the woman thinks, okay, let's assume that we're going to be faithful to each other, and the guy's kind of taking too long to answer. Meaning, well, yeah, but then you kind of feel like, well, he might not do this because he's taking too long to answer. But definitely the conversation has to be very, very elaborate. You have to spend, that's what engagement is supposed to be. You're supposed to be engaged and then spend that time kind of planning and asking each other the right questions. And if it doesn't, I've had an engagement that lasted a year and then I broke it off because the more we asked the questions and what was happening, it was just like I was moving further and further away until I was out. And that's really important because I would now be in a marriage that is just not what I need at this stage in life. But even the other question is valid too. When you're getting out, I think I said earlier, I mean, my goodness, let's try to do things amicably. Let's try and preserve each other as we exit. Just because it didn't work out between the two of us doesn't mean you're the worst person in the world or I'm the worst person in the world. Although most of the time that's how people leave relationships. And, she's such a narcissist and he's this and that. But definitely relationships, and I'll specify and say marriage, they require a very high level of maturity. And if you don't have it, you're going to fail dismally.
I like that. I like that. We're at the half hour. Do we have another video? Should we go to another video? If not, I got some more questions.
For me would have been, I'm more tempted to leave because I know. The temptation for me would have been, I'm more tempted to leave because I know I can survive on my own.
Yeah.
Right? There were times that we stayed together because we couldn't survive without each other. This is the truth. It won't love, it won't, it was like, dang, I can't afford to leave. We're gonna have to work it out.
We stuck.
And throughout that time, we just fell back in love.
Yeah.
But there were times where we absolutely were not in love with each other. We loved each other, but being in love is completely different.
Yes.
There were times we did not like each other. There was times that you wouldn't even know we was married.
Yep. Walking by each other.
But we could not afford to leave each other.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, you couldn't even afford to be tempted.
Listen.
Can I just say, we've heard this also with Michelle Obama talking about how she did not, like she said she spent like 10 years where she did not even like him and she couldn't even stand him.
Welcome to married life.
I wonder if, and this is a legit question, I wonder if not liking and being broke are well, I guess it's two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It feels like it's two sides of the same coin. It's the ups and the downs, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They didn't not leave because they didn't not leave due to finances. They did not leave because they were married, right? It wasn't because I can't afford it. We're in a season right now where things aren't great. But I think, and to Noma's point, I heard her say, I never even thought about leaving. It wasn't even an option. It wasn't even, we're just not vibing right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
if I recall correctly, with Michelle Obama's specific example, it was like children came into the fold and then she was kind of carrying most of the load. And, she had her own very successful career. She had to put it aside and it seemed like he was just sailing away and enjoying life.
Resentment,
and she started to resent him.
Yep.
And she was very honest about that. She's like, I spent a good 10 years where I just did not like him.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying, honestly, if I may add, is because I felt the same. I was a stay-at-home mom. You don't realize what that will do to you until you say, oh, wait a minute, this is it? Staying at home? It's a lot of work and I'm not a professional any longer, but my husband is doing well and is going. You start to resent them, right, in the marriage. That's why marriage is for better or worse. You're going to go through those times. But the same person that you didn't like, now you love them again. That is why you don't just leave because something is going wrong. You walk through it, because stories like this remind you that, oh my God, yeah, that's why they say for better, for worse, because you're going to have those times. You don't leave because something is going wrong. You work through it. You just stay and walk through it. And if all of us see couples that have been married for 50 years, we're like, wow, that's amazing. But that difficult times in between. It wasn't just all lovey-dovey. Oh, yes, I'm in love. I'm lying down. You're rubbing my hair all the time. Yeah, right. No, marriage is both. You have the ups and downs, but you stay together. And that's why it's so beautiful at the end of the day. Somebody's not hurting me and like abusing me physically or insulting me every day. We'll try to make it work. Money shouldn't be the reason where we have to stay because of money. No, we make it work because it's the right thing to do.
I don't think people commitment takes to stay with somebody for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. When you stay with somebody that long, it's not because it's beautiful. It's because you figured out how to make it through the hard times. Because hard times are going to come. I didn't know that my grandfather, let me see how I want to say that. I didn't know that my grandfather had some issues. I'll say it that way because I don't know how my family would feel about me telling my other family's business. But I didn't. We were at my grandparents' like 30th or 40th anniversary, something like that. I threw them like a 30th or 40th anniversary party. And while we were there, somebody was talking about some stories that had happened before I was born. And I was like, wait a minute, that happened? How come I didn't know? I'm like, I didn't even know some of the things, some of the life stories, because I've only known them as being together and being happy. I didn't know that they had gone through some of these different things when he was in the military and whatnot. And I was like, he did what? And you stayed? I'm talking to my grandma like, wait a minute. But and me and my dude, we talk about it all the time. He was like, he always says that you could have never been one of those women of, oh, you talk too much. You always be wanting to rip but they were a different breed. I mean, in my opinion, compared to say, Shalaye, are people making long-term decisions based on short-term pressure? Because if we look at that clip, and if we look at them today, we would never think that. If we look at Michelle, and about, we would never think that. But I think people get caught up in what's happening in this moment right now. I am not dealing with this, and then they're out, not really realizing that the grass is green because the light is green.
Right.
Like brown grass, they got a green light on it.
I got a green bulb. It ain't really green. I think that, yes, I believe that in most relationships, things are going to happen. And in the short term, you're like, I don't want to deal with this. I'm not going to deal with this, and things like that. And yes, perhaps, and sometimes when you stick it out, it ends up being okay, right? I think that it depends on, like you said, your guy said you wouldn't have been one of those women. I really firmly believe that it boils down to the individuals, because some people will be able to handle and get through some things that other people would not be able to stick around for. And I think that in our culture, and we have these conversations, and I love when I hear someone's been married for 20, 30, 40 years. That's, they've been through some stuff, right? And if you really delve into that story of that couple and hear about the ups and downs and the ebbs and flows, it really, with those two particular people who were able to get through that, maybe one more than the other. I can say that historically, maybe one more than the other. It really just boils down to the individuals. I'll say that.
Okay, I like that. Go ahead, Noma.
I was gonna say one thing I have noticed is that a lot of times people talk about what they would do if something happened, and then when it actually happens, sometimes they do exactly the opposite of what they said. So you get a lot of women say, "Oh, that couldn't be me. I would not." And then when it actually happens, they are right there, and you're staring at them like, "But wait a minute, this is you, Noma. You're strong. You're this, you're that, and you're putting up with this." And she just has no answers. That was the first point. The second thing is, I see our producer says that sometimes women stay because they could not survive without their husbands. And while that may be true sometimes, I keep hitting on this, and I'll hit on it again. If you do a properly negotiated marriage, you should be able to go into the marriage with a safety net around you, that if he mistreats you, if he dies, if he gets sick, you're still okay. And then you don't have to have that conversation with yourself about, well, if I leave him, I'll die of hunger. You should have a safety net. You won't necessarily have all the comfort that you would have had inside that marriage, but at least you will survive. And one of those things is family. You should be able to, I was saying it during the conference or the convention this weekend. I was like, one of the things that I agreed with my siblings is we are never going to sell our parents' house, because we all want to be able to say we can go home. Now, of course, my mother just passed away, so home is not quite home, but at least you have that safety net where there's a roof over your head and there's something familiar. You can recover from whatever hit you in life and you fell down, recover a little bit, and then get back out there and try life again.
Yeah, I mean, I can testify to that. Some of our conversations are relative to that. I have a girlfriend that's 5 years younger than me. She's 45, and the dude I'm talking to now, this is like our second time around. So we've known each other for 20 years. This year, we dated for like 5-6 years, 11-year break. We've been back dating for like 3 years, roughly, something like that. And so we talk often. Like a lot of the things that we're going through and experiencing, they are things that I'm like, I would never do that. Ain't no way. And I find myself like, okay, but I'm older, I'm more mature. the dynamics of the relationship require it, right? And so I'm talking to my girlfriend that's younger than me. She's like, ain't no way, ain't no way. I'm like, it's not that it's ain't no way. You just haven't met the man that you're willing to make a way for. Because it's not that it's ain't no way. You have to meet the right man that you're willing to be like, let me figure out how to work with this. Let me see if I can work with this. And I'm not talking about getting beat up and punched in the eye, stuff like that. I'm just saying maybe just, you know, meet him in the middle. Okay. Submitting. Okay. Do we have another video, producer?
Are in
Let's do some
relationships
stats.
because they can't afford a rent on their own. A lot of people are in
Oh,
relationships because they don't want to fall asleep by themselves at night. They can't afford a rent on their own. A lot of people are in relationships because they don't want to fall asleep by themselves at night. A lot of people are in relationships because their mom or dad tell them that they're getting too old. A lot of people are in relationships for the wrong reason. And the truth is, when you get to a space where you love you enough to get rid of the noise that comes from outside of you, the people, the places, the things, the biases, the societal norms, when you get outside of all of that, now you can powerfully choose. I'm choosing you because I want you, not because I need you. Although I'm not going to act like I don't need you. I'm going to move like I genuinely want you in my life. And until you get to that point, I don't think you should be in a relationship.
Okay. Question. Anybody can have at it. Do you think that this is more common in certain income brackets?
What's more common?
Staying because you don't have the finances to be single.
Well, yeah, if you don't have the finances to be single.
But so
I think that we're talking about a couple, like two different things today, because we're talking about really, when I hear about this, what I think becomes missing from the conversation sometimes, because we are programmed societally to do certain things and depending on our cultures and things like that. When we talk about relationships and marriage and staying and working through the hard times, I think absolutely, yes, we should be doing that. But then also, at what point do we talk about having the agency to make the decision where I am just not happy, whether I have children or not? I am just not happy, and there are reasons why I'm not happy in the relationship. So I want to leave for those reasons. And, you know, maybe you've given it a try, maybe not because I don't think that most people get into a relationship, and then a year later they're like, I'm out because sex wasn't good. He didn't have no money. You know what I'm saying? I don't think people are thinking so lightly about this. I think people do put in a lot of energy, effort, and time and giving the relationship an opportunity. But at what point do we say, you know what? This just does not work for me. And if I stay in this, whether it's because of money and everything else, if I stay in this isn't going to fulfill, I'm going to feel unfulfilled. Not even that it's not going to fulfill me because that's my job, but I'm going to be unfulfilled. And when we talk about marriage and everything, which is beautiful, previous generations of women, and I'm just going to speak from the women's perspective, did not have the luxury of having that option to do that. And because we have the option to do that now, I think that a lot of times the conversation gets skewed because we're not bringing in that aspect of we do have the option to do that now. Whether or not people think it's right or wrong, but the option is there, so people are exercising that option. And sometimes it's just that.
Okay. I don't disagree with you. And I think so. I don't disagree with you. And I think you're correct. I think that it is after that, though, right? So after you get to that point, right? And you say, this no longer serves me. This does not work. Both parties agree. Like, it's not just one person saying, I'm out of here. It's both parties saying, this isn't working. Mm-hmm. But now, as we're looking to separate, I can't make it without you.
It's a real thing.
Like I think that's the conversation that we're having. Yeah. It's not for the person who's like, we still in it. I still want you. Let's figure it out. It's for the people who are like, yeah, this ain't it anymore. Yeah. Like,
and that's the thing. Sometimes it's going to be both people like, and they just have an arrangement. They have an agreement, and they're like, oh, this is our agreement. I think more often than not, it's probably one person who wants to leave and they're not feeling, and the other person is trying to hold on. And I think that that's where the resentment and everything comes in. Because if you're both in the situation and you both are just like, we both want to do this separation thing, we just can't afford it right now. I think that's something that you come to an agreement to, and you have a roommate situation and you make that work for what it is. But I think that it's when, one person has, they want to leave. And then the other person is like, no, but they're still holding on, but the relationship still doesn't work. And then bringing the finances into it, it's a real thing. I know people, and I've experienced it, and it's a real thing. And it's hard because you really want to make the right decision. And sometimes you hold on a little too long too, because you're trying to make the right decision, because you think, okay, if I leave, that might be the wrong decision, but also staying might be the one thing that's holding you back from actually making that leap financially too, energetically. So it's not easy.
I'm of the belief, and I can only speak for myself, when I'm done and I leave, I'm done and I leave. I've never circled back around, not one time my whole life. He's the first person, the first time. Because I know I'm going to stay. I'm a rock. I'm going to do all the things that I can for as long as I can until I cannot possibly do it anymore. So that when it is, if ever it does come to that place, I will know I did everything I could. I bent over backwards. I did things I didn't want to do. I really got in there and did everything I could possibly do.
What if all the things that you're doing are the wrong things? All that trying, all that I did everything. What if some of those things are actually the wrong things?
It depends on if they're the thing that the person's saying. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And you're trying to do the things. So you're right. Some of them could be wrong, but what if it's everything that they're saying that they need and it's still not right?
And what's right and what's wrong?
The thing with that, well, we don't have to try and create blurred lines about what's right and what's wrong. But I was gonna say the reason why I'm shaking my head with this I'm not happy conversation is that we were taught from a very young age is once you start focusing on your own happiness and your own fulfillment, you're a very selfish person. And there's no way a relationship can work when you have selfish people. It's not about just being happy, because the truth is you can be happy today and unhappy tomorrow, sad tomorrow, depressed, blah, blah. That's just that flailing thing. And a person who will focus too much on their own happiness, that's selfishness, and it will destroy families. It will destroy relationships. It's impossible to sustain a relationship if happiness is the focus. Absolutely, you should experience joy. You should experience peace, stability, comfort, all of those things. But imagine women, we have a 30-day cycle, and for a week we feel one extreme and then another extreme. And imagine if we ran our relationships based on our feelings. That is just a recipe for disaster. That is why we cannot run our relationships based on these fluffy things like, oh, I'm happy, I'm not happy, I have to leave, I'm going to tear apart my marriage and my family and devastate my children. Why? Because I'm not happy. It's such a shallow thing.
I'm gonna come back to that. I'm gonna let Aisha weigh in, and then I'm gonna talk, and then I'm gonna come back and address it myself. Aisha, what are your thoughts?
Yes, we're all speaking. I'm listening, and I think that it's not easy, right? Anything is not. If relationships are not easy, but they are so important, they're so powerful, and they're life-giving. And if we are willing to weather the storm, right? Because I know that if I have a friend that is not there for me when I need them because I'm going through a difficulty, I don't want to be friends with them. Then imagine you're married to someone, and because you're having a bad, or something is not going well, you just want to leave as well, or you think it's not working out the way you want it to work out. Before I got married, something I learned that I think it's so beautiful because we're doing things the right way was this. While we were engaged, because you had time to engage, to get to know this person, and you had the adults that are around you, that the village people that are the older people, like Norma was saying, the uncles, the aunties, the people that are older, they're able to see the things that you don't see. Because when you're in love with someone, you don't see their what they're doing, that you're not catching on. But the older people will catch it on, and then they ask them questions. I see you do A, B, C, and D. right? So they're helping you really make sound decisions so that when you now come together, you can't tear up what you're building just easily. It will really take a lot to do anything like that. And even if that happens, you really have safety nets built already in place. I believe in dowry. My husband paid a dowry to marry me because, again, something happens, I can always go back home, right? So the church prepares you in a way where you have this experience where those that are older than you give you advice, you watch what's going on, they ask you questions, and you have to answer them. And some people literally leave because they couldn't answer those questions. And I think that is how you really set the stage or the foundation of at least longevity and weathering the storm. And when scripture says for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, there's a reason that was said to us. Whether we want to accept it or not, just as human beings, that is really a guardrail to protect us. But if we go against it and do things our own way, then we're going to have all these other ways to do things. Well, because of money, I'm going to stay, or because of this, I'm going to stay. So I think that, the best thing for us to do, if possible, even though we've done it, if we made a mistake before, that's fine. Start over, rebuild the foundation so that way you can begin to understand that, you can have a good life too if you try. And if it doesn't work out, instead of staying with a man that doesn't like you or because of the money, find a girlfriend if you're a woman and be a roommate with her. And if he's a man, find a man and be a roommate with him. So that way you're preserving yourself and not destroying or causing more harm just because you want to stay with someone and make it work. We're bearing false witness when we do that. It's not right for us and also for the community.
Okay. So for what I'm hearing is you make a choice, you marry someone, and you stay with them no matter what, outside of abuse. What I'm also hearing is when you guys are talking about marriage, it is a transaction. It is about money because you're saying all the other stuff doesn't matter. Does this person provide for you? It doesn't matter if you're happy. And again, when I said it's not about being happy every day, no one can do that for you. But if you're in a relationship that is unfulfilling to you, and you are not happy in that relationship, not that relationship is making you happy, you are unfulfilled in that relationship, and you find out that this isn't the right person for you. And a lot of times, sometimes, I think most of the time, it takes a while to know if you are compatible with that person, right? In that way for long term. So it sounds like what I'm hearing is, yes, marriage forever, no matter what. And it sounds like what I'm hearing is marriage is for money. That is the reason. Forget about love, forget about all of that. And that is a perspective, that anyone has the right to believe. Some people think about it differently. That there are these things that I need in a relationship or a marriage. And if I cannot have that with this person, then maybe that's not good for my peace or my well-being. I think that it depends on how the person views what it is that they need in that relationship. And also sometimes staying with someone where you're not getting fulfilled, that is also harmful emotionally and mentally. So when I said what is right and what is wrong, and obviously these are conversations to have, that's a real thing. I think that everyone needs to have that conversation about what is right and what is wrong for them.
I think all of that is applicable. I think some of these conversations we're having are cultural, right? I wish somebody would come and try to pay my mom a dowry for me. What am I worth? Because we don't do that here in America.
I've lived in America since I was 19 years old. So what has shaped my adult life has been American life.
Yeah.
And it's only when I got much older did I start saying, wait a minute, maybe throwing away culture, let me look at this again and see the value in this. And it's not just my culture, it's all cultures. I've looked at other cultures and success leaves clues,
Well, yeah, it's just not American culture. Yeah. It's not American culture. We live in America, so we don't, if somebody doesn't study other cultures, which most people do not, and you're going off of American culture, that's not American culture, right? And if we look at it from that perspective, there's a whole lot of what we do that is most likely wrong. That if we went back to the days of old and things of that nature, we could probably self-correct. We don't, And that in honesty, we're getting further and further away from Black excellence.
Yeah,
Black
and the
family.
statistics don't lie. The results don't lie. The statistics don't lie.
Yeah.
The
Further we
results
move
of what?
away,
Okay.
the
Hold on
results,
one
in
second.
other words,
Let me-
is you cannot deny.
Hold on one second. Let me get these stats done before my executive.
Thank you. Some statistics. Okay.
All right. Cost of living increases have reshaped personal decision making. Okay. Yeah. A growing number of adults delay separation due to economic pressure. Financial stress is a leading cause of relationship conflict. Many households rely on two incomes to meet basic expenses. Housing costs have risen significantly in most major U.S. cities. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Clear expectations reduce long-term resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Money
That's
is one
right.
of the most common sources of conflict and divorce and separation in relationships.
Mhm.
Okay. Are we done with video? I think we've done all of our videos. I'm not sure. If we are not done, let's do the last one right now. And then if outside of that, go ahead. Go ahead with what you're going to say. No, I'm sorry about that.
I was going to say, we cannot deny what statistics say. For example, if you look at, I don't even know what it is anymore. If you look at the general population in America, I think the divorce rate just hovers around 50% or so. Then if you look at that micro population of Black people, it goes up significantly, right? Single parent homes go up significantly. So that's not an opinion. That's just something that we're looking at. Then you take it a step further and you look at the preschool to prison pipeline. It exists primarily in single parent homes. Then there's other factors. I know Shalaye was shuddering when I said this the last time. Children do better with their fathers rather than with their mothers if it's a single parent home. These are all statistics and I don't have to prove it. You all can go and literally Google it and look for it. And it's not me. It is what it is. But what I'm trying to say is when we move away from some fundamentals, things really go wrong. So, and I'm saying that because as an adult, I had to stop and look and think, wait a minute, where did things go wrong? Let me look at this, let me look at that in my own culture and other people's culture and American culture. And I was like, wow, this is what works. I remember this past weekend, we're talking about, no, I think it's last week, we're talking about arranged marriage. Arranged marriage has an almost 100% probability of success. They never divorce. And then somebody was like, well, I don't want that. I no way. I could have, okay.
Are they allowed to? You have an arranged marriage. Are you allowed to divorce when you have an arranged marriage?
Allowed by who?
I don't know. If two
it's legal to divorce. It's legal,
people have to be married.
Divorce. Nobody can force anybody to be married.
Married,
Just in the same way, you say a woman can't leave because of the money.
Say that these two people have to be married. These two people come together and say
people think arranged marriages are forced, but
I know that's a misconception.
Arranged. Yeah, there's this misperception that arranged marriage means forced marriage. And actually, most of the time when I talk about arranged marriage, I'm talking about Indians. I'm not talking about Africans. I've seen it more with Indian people that I know, and they talk about it, and that's how I learned the most about it. The statistics say that they almost never divorce. Do you know why? Because it's two families. They talk about their children. They know them very well. They screen for them. And then by the time they meet somebody, it's somebody that's been pre-screened. So success is almost guaranteed no matter who they pick. Then it comes to, do we have that chemistry? Are we attracted to each other? Do we have the same life goals? That kind of thing, which is how it should be in the first place. But typically in modern society or in American culture, and it's not even American culture, it's global now, modern society, we come together, we have sex, our hormones are raging, and then we try to make decisions while we're saying we're in love, and they're awful decisions. That's why people keep getting into relationships, making babies, then getting out and getting to the next one, and on and on and on. It's because we jump in and have sex, and then that muddles everything up. Whereas if you try to do it in a more organized way, where you remove that intimacy until it's actually in a good environment where you know that you're safe and there's longevity, it works better. It just does. These are just facts. It's not my opinion. It's not my culture. It's just what works.
Unfortunately, yes, period. I gotta make sure I honor correct. American culture says no, ma'am. But we would be doing so much better as a society if we got back to that. All right, so we're gonna do our final thoughts. With your final thought, tell people where they can find you. You can either give your final thought on this topic, or is independence becoming a luxury? So either or. You can give your final thought on this particular topic, or is independence becoming a luxury? Aisha, we'll start with you.
Thank you. It's been a great conversation today, and I still go back to the traditional way of doing things, where if it's possible, have your family come together and help you make a decision when you find someone you want to be with. So that way, when you have your relationship, you fight for it, and it's not about whether it's money or, because it's more than money. It's a human being you're dealing with. So you want to make sure that you have people that you love and trust be around you when you're finding somebody like that. And do not do things out of just feelings, because feelings are fleeting. They change from minute to minute, hour to hour. So let's work together to have a better life. And that's just the way we should be thinking, rather than doing things where it causes us harm. No need for that. Where can you find me? We're at a Black Business School. And if you need any help with your insurance or understanding how your finances should look like, reach out to us. We can help you. You can find me at www.aishaverzi.com or the Black Business School. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Nomalinga, final thoughts?
So independence has struck another nerve. Independence is tragic because it is a trauma response. Independence is basically saying I have to rely mostly or only on myself because nobody loves me enough. I don't have a community. I don't have a family. I don't have people around me. That's what independence is. So I don't like the word. I don't like the idea of independence. I like community. I like family. I like marriage. In fact, I don't just love them. I'm passionate about them. I'll stop there. Where can you find me? I'm not sure I want to be found after this weekend. There's a whole influx of inboxes everywhere. You can find me. I'm mostly on Facebook. I'm a Facebooker. I'm Nomalanga Gaborone on Facebook, and you can always inbox me, especially if you're in any of my courses at the Black Business School. I have 2 courses at the Black Business School. One is on homeschooling, and one is a very old course that I did with Dr. Boyce that is still very valid. It's about emancipating yourself from the workplace and starting your own business and making it successful. And then the last thing is, please support us at padsforourgirls.com. We have a charity that supports girls who are in school and they're too poor to afford sanitary pads. So we do our best to get donations, whether they're pads or money, and take care of them. So if you can, the smallest amount counts, padsforourgirls.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shalaye, last but not least.
Yes. So to your question, because that question was very interesting to me, is independence a luxury? I think it is. And I believe that in this day and age, in the society that we're living in, and women, mostly women, having this newfound luxury of independence because being able to go out and work and make their own money, I think that it's kicking up sand and causing a ruckus, right? And I think that we're in a position in our society and in this time where we need to come together and figure out what works for the best for all of us as a community, as families, as individuals, because everyone is not going to go down the same path. I am Shalaye Camillo with Vital Source Realty in Boston, Massachusetts, and I can help you buy anywhere in the continental United States or Canada. I can help you buy or sell anything. And you can reach me at Shalaye Camillo at vitalsourcerealty.com. If you want to email me, you have any questions, vitalsourcerealty.com, and follow me on IG at Shalaye Camillo.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So I wrote a couple of notes. I'm going to try to make this really quick because I'm going to only have 45 seconds. I also agree that independence is a luxury. I'm only going to speak for Black women specifically. Independence is a luxury. The ability to make your own money, the ability to have the choice to stay or to leave. We just can't die on the hill. We can't choke on the independence. I think that we have, I think that when we talk about the women of old and how they were in their relationships, I think they turned around and raised their daughters to be like, do not stay if you don't want to stay. Do not stay if you're not happy. I think that they took on a lot, and then they turned around to their daughters and said, do better, be better, take better care of yourself. You don't have to depend on a man. And now we have this luxury independence. We don't necessarily know how to temper it in relationship because we were told to be so strong and independent that now sometimes it catches us in a relationship where we'll be like, well, I'm out of here. I think we have to figure out how to balance that, right? It is a luxury, but the reality is, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any woman wants to be by herself and do all the things, right? But I think it's finding the right man to work through life with, right? And so I say that to say, talking about what could happen, what should happen, what we're supposed to do is one thing, but addressing what's actually happening right now, I think is the priority. How do we get out of where we are right now, right? And then that's going to be different for everybody. You have to figure that out for yourself. But I think having these types of conversations are what open us to be able to go back and talk to your mate or your friend or your parent or a cousin and say, hey, have you thought about this? And so that's why these conversations are still super important and valid, because it gets us talking and it gets us thinking about how do we want to show up in our own lives, in our own relationships. So I'm Dr. LaNee Javette. I am a Brilliant to Bank strategist and a business coach. You can find me at I am Dr. LaNee Javette, or you can go to my website, www.drlaneejavette.com. I want to thank all of our queens today, our panelists, Shalaye, Aisha, Nomalenga, those of you guys in the chat. Appreciate you guys for showing up all the time. Anonymous and Dennis and Double A and Deborah. Thank you guys for being here on a regular basis. Money affects choices, whether people want to admit it or not. Staying in a relationship to afford life raises real questions about stability, independence, and long-term well-being. This conversation wasn't about right or wrong. It was about understanding how financial pressure shapes personal decisions and what people need to think through when money and relationships collide. As always, thank you so much for being here. You can tune in to us Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. You can catch us on Shopify. If you want to know when we're going live, you can text the word Queens, QUEENS, to 87948. That's 87948. That way you get notified when we're live. If you miss us, you can rewatch us on YouTube or check us out on Spotify. Go out today, be blessed, stay Black, and be one. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.